Analysis Centre. I'm with the Center for Democracy and Development. Let me hand over to my director to speak to all those things we've been observing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chancellor, and thank you very much, gentlemen of the press. Apologies for starting late, but of course we had to wait for you. We wanted to be 4-4 today. But thank you still for coming and for the support you are giving us. So briefly, I'll speak to our methodology for observing this election. So we have deployed on the field 255 trained observers who are monitoring PUs and they are monitoring world coalition. Across the state, we also have 30 journalists spread across the 18 local governments itself, with our partners from the Cable, the ICRR, and Investigative Center for Journalism and Newswire. So these three media groups are also helping us to do close monitoring of issues. They've been on ground for the last 3 days in those local governments, giving us details in terms of what is happening. We have a fake news corner where I have at least 6 of my colleagues present here who are fake news fact checkers and analysts. So we'll also be giving you an idea of the disinformation ecosystem since this election. So thank you very much for that. And of course, on Monday we'll be doing a final press briefing in Akure. So all our information is of course collated from all these sources on what we're actually going to be speaking on. I think most importantly, today everybody will want to know what has happened with the deployment of logistics. We are very happy to note that we observe an improvement in the deployment of logistics by the Independent National Electoral Commission compared to Ondo State. There was timely arrival of materials and officials, and our observers said the availability of all necessary sensitive and non-sensitive materials, which includes the EC60B, the Form EC60A, 30A, hand sanitizer, cubicle box, ballot paper, card reader, result sheets, like I've earlier mentioned, stamp pad, and the smart card readers, and everything you can think of. However, this may be, we also note that the rain seriously affected the deployment in several local governments. There were instances where the voting has already commenced, but they were disrupted by the rain, and this compromised the secrecy of the vote, the ability to even implement social distancing in some areas. And in this case, we cited Ondo State, Akure South, and Akure North as examples. But also, we want to highlight the positive, that it is heartwarming that in some instances, voters insisted on continuing with the exercise in spite of the rain. In Ondo State local government, for instance, despite the heavy rain, voters defied the weather to exercise their franchise. In Ward 5 polling units 07 in Akure South local government, our observers reported that in spite of the non-availability of canopy to shelter, party agents and voters remained under the rain to keep a close watch on the ballot box alongside security personnel and INEC officials. We at the CDD commend the resilient disposition of voters and their resolve to protect the sanctity of the vote in this instance itself. We however noted that in several instances there are people who have done transfer of their registration. They were not able to vote because it's not been effected itself. We hope I need to work on this. However, at the time of receiving this, at the time of concluding this report, we are also beginning to receive reports of attacks on INEC staff and personnel. For instance, there are areas in Akure South local government where it was reported that hoodlums were chasing away VAC technicians, and these VAC technicians are the ones that when there are challenges with the smart card reader, D-pad itself, they are able to help in terms of addressing it. And we opine that if VAC techs are chased out of the polling unit and prevented from carrying out their duty, it compromises the transparency of the process, in particular the ability to upload results onto the INEC results viewing platform itself. I think that in this instance, we want to call on the security agents to ensure that they deploy appropriately enough personnel to protect INEC staff, their personnel during the period of collation, which is the most important period itself. And INEC also to ensure that there is speedy transmission of those results, particularly on those platforms, which allows for more credibility to be infused into the process. And here we have noted the Digbo was 5 PU08, Akure 2 PU001, Ward 7 SL, the local government Ward 6 PU07 in Idonre, as well as in some instances, some wards in Ilaje local government. On security deployment, really, we noted that there were an average of 4 to 8 in each polling unit. And the people that were observed include the Nigerian Police, Customs Service, Immigration, Nigeria Security, and Civil Defense Corps. Observers reported that these deployed personnel were quite courteous, but again, we noticed instances where they turned their face when there was actually vote buying without implementing the law. I think here in the city, there has been arrest of 2 people, and we are looking up to them to ensure that those people that have been arrested are prosecuted duly. Yeah. Now, on vote buying itself, we start by highlighting the positive to talk of places where people have actually pushed back against the anomaly of vote buying. So, our observers documented incidences in Idonre, Ward 3 PU6, also in Ward 8 PU1, 2, and 3, and Ward 5 PU1. In all those cases, voters insisted they wished to vote for a person of their choice. There was a huge debate, while some were of the opinion that they should collect the money and vote their conscience. Some were that they should be allowed to vote for people that they wanted. And at the end of the day, this majority of voters succeeded in chasing away the vote buyers. And we want to commend this. But beyond this positive, we also observe a structured and consistent pattern of vote buying in these elections. And some, of course, I've earlier mentioned, were in the full glare, and some were out of the glare of the security forces. There were attempts by the political gladiators in these instances to outspend the order. So one is offering 5,000, the other one goes to offer 7,000, and in particular, spending more in their own stronghold, not to lose votes. Then we also saw that some of the modus operandi was to distribute cash discreetly at points close to the polling unit. So they created outposts where after you vote, you can go and collect cash. I think there was one I saw myself in Ondo, like 3 houses away from the polling unit. You go there and you collect your cash. In Ondo, we also had areas where they bought bulk votes, and we had parties giving between 150,000 and 600, a mark for each polling unit, and they hand it over to popular figures, especially youth groups, to actually share again. We had instances of electronic cash transfer to voters after they have voted, and of course there were agents that coordinated this. And I think one thing that is also very fascinating in this election is that most times it was not political party agents that were coordinating. They had somebody that looked more like a neutral person, then who would then pay the money itself, to show you how pervasive and how much structure this is actually in. In fact, it's very funny that here we saw people also protesting that they've not been paid after they've already cast their votes itself. On COVID-19, compared to the Edo elections, we want to say that INEC made efforts in terms of implementing the whole protocol. In most of the polling units, you find the infrared thermometer, ventilated spirit, and sanitizer. In the morning, we saw them applying it to people. But the fact remains that in most places, the rule of physical distancing were not adhered to at all, and people made complete disregard the protocol. In fact, the doctrine, that two-tier queuing system, was not adhered to at all. Maybe due to time or lack of training by the staff for them to really understand what the two-tier queue system actually meant. But for us at the CDD, we have reached the conclusion that the blatant disregard for COVID-19 protocol is a societal problem. So it's a collective approach problem where people believe either that the what do you call it, the virus is not dangerous, or it cannot impact on them as much as they think of. On electoral violence and offenses, we've observed pockets of violence during the election, but as at now, like we earlier mentioned, it's not become widespread, but we are cautious, we are exhibiting cautious optimism and continue to call on the security agents to ensure that they continue to be non-partisan and continue with their strategic deployments in all places already. There are areas where there were lots of tension. Most of this tension are being nipped in the bud with the voters themselves actively involved. But we also had instances of assisted voting, where in particular elderly voters were assisted to vote by the party agents. Cases of impersonation were of course arrested, but they were turned back itself. One very important issue that we've noticed, I think as at the time we are filing this report, we have identified like 8 fake news which have permeated the polity since in the last 24 hours. I think important of those is the claim that one of the candidates in the election has stepped down itself, that is withdrawn from the election. This, we believe, is to create doubts in the minds of voters who want to cast their vote for that particular candidate. There was also a very big incidence of violence, which they claim happened in the governor's polling unit in Ondo. I think, fortunately for us, we were right there at that point in time, and it was kind of unbelievable to be where they said 3 people have been killed, and the one woman is injured itself. The governor's wife is injured itself. There are lots of fake news that continue to come out. If you look behind, you see it on our board. But what we want to do is we want to call on citizens to be wary of fake news, particularly noting that at this point in time, fake result sheets will start being circulated. So people will start talking and saying this one has won, this or that one is winning. We should all be aware of the fake results that will start circulating at this point in time. Incidents of violence should actually be fact-checked on credible platforms such as ours and others. And I think we call on people to remain very, very calm, especially with the demeanor of the Ondo voters. We are very, very positive that this election will end again very peacefully in such a way that the votes of citizens will definitely count. But it's important that during this last but very important minutes of the elections, which is the vote counting and the collation process, that the security deployment continues to be strategic and non-partisan, and there is adequate protection, in particular for INEC officials, while INEC itself ensures that they timeously upload all results on their result viewing platform. Thank you very much.
So that's the briefing. If you have questions, we would like to take them. You could kindly introduce yourself and ask our questions directly.
My name is Abdullah Shivali from Daily Trust. I remember during the
Akure election building, he called on INEC to be more proactive in terms of logistic deployment in riverine areas. What's your observation in terms of logistic deployment in this area, like Nigeria, Seoul, and so on?
Thank you.
My name is Shegun Masifani from Eastern Nigeria. In your report, you see that there are no report of ballot stuffing, ballot snatching, or attempt to carry ballot paper from one polling unit to change the order, as we see in other elections.
Thank you very much. I'm Nick Kasala, Professor of Nigeria. Having said all this, I want to ask precisely, and from your own experience, how best will you advise the electoral empire and the country at large? Because we've seen that the greatest, having eliminated close to 80% of the previously known electoral, Akure, so to speak, this is through the introduction of smart carding. We discovered that the greatest problem we have today is vote buying. And this is seriously impacting negatively on the success of all the efforts that have been made in the past. So, what would be your advice? And how best do you think we can do about this? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. No, thank you very much. I think on the issue of the vote buying, in our last briefing for the month, we concluded that the issue of vote buying has to do with the endemic poverty that is ravaging the country. When you talk to people in the field, most people are even waiting to sell their vote before they move out to vote if they don't find a buyer or going to the highest bidder. So unless democracy itself is delivering development to the people, and hoping that issue of vote buying might be difficult to cause, is a poverty issue. And it goes back to our chapter 2 of the Constitution itself, which we should use the constitutional amendment process to address and make justiciable. So this I think it's an aggravated monster, and it's something that is worrying that now vote buying is determining the outcome of an election. So the one who has the most money can easily win an election. Maybe you don't even have to use violence. Just ensure that you have enough money in your coffers and give so much money to people. Then add a bit of strategic violence and fake news. Then you can easily win the elections. I think this is very key. Now, on the issue of the deployment, as at yesterday, our observers were already reporting that in places like SLDO, in the uplands area, as in where there is no water, INEC has already deployed over there. The problem was now moving it to the riverine area, and you will see the infrastructural challenges that was occasioned with a boat, a canoe almost capsizing. Thank God that so far so good, we have not had any incident of anybody dying during this mayhem. So it calls, of course, for better infrastructure from the political class again, and secondly, for better logistics deployment by INEC, not to use those kind of cranky and something votes that almost capsized. I wonder what we would have been saying today, but we thank God that at least nobody lost his or her life in it. Yes, so I think that in terms of attempt at ballot box snatching, as at now, what we have is attempt to vote with, to impersonate a voter, to scuttle the place. I think that people don't really have to ballot stuff, because if you had listened to me very well. You have people trying to scuttle the process in such a way that once they have scuttled that process, the result will not matter, especially in pursuing INEC officials, trying to prevent the people who would do the upload. And these local governments that I've actually mentioned are very important local governments. I'm looking for this again so that I like those local. I know SLD is there, like 2 words of SLD is there. If my paper disappears all of a sudden. Akure South is another one. Yes, the second one. Beyond is the follow-up one. No, it's the second one. This one, yes. This one, highlight. So you will see it's already highlighted, and Odigbo local government, which is somewhere we should watch, because at the last time I was watching, I was seeing lots of tension coming up in that area. Agogo, SLD, Ijonbu, Ilaje. So when you start finding some kind of coordinated behavior in some places, I think it gives room for what it needs. Any other question?
Thank you very much. Let me just say a little bit about the issue of the vote buying. And I think that I quite agree with the director of CDD that in addressing the issue of vote buying in Nigeria, we must take a very holistic approach to it. We must look at it from the angle of development. When there is a country that is riddled with poverty, it will be easy for people to be transactional with their votes. Then secondly, the impunity that goes around with it. We haven't seen despite that it was obvious to every one of us today that they are selling and buying. You are not actually seeing a whole lot of people arrested, for that. So as long as there's no deterrence, as long as there's still impunity surrounding the conversation of vote buying, it's not going to be possible for us to be able to address it. And of course, because there's corruption everywhere, in some of places when people were speculating about who even has the money that is being shared, and they were naming names from party agents to police and all of that. So the fact that corruption has gradually become an official thing in the country is also a problem when it comes to the issue of vote buying. So there is a need for a very holistic approach. The Electoral Act is very clear about this in terms of what should be done to anyone who is found doing any form of inducement. But unfortunately, we don't see this act being activated when it comes to the issue of vote buying. So I think that when we take a very holistic perspective, do advocacy, ensure that we address the poverty that is killing us on a daily basis, that can make people to sell his whole future, for 5,000 naira. We probably will not be able to address it, just as the director of CDD said. Thank you.
More questions?
My name is Silodo. Now, just center around on this issue where we have this isolation election. Like if you have the now that we have the president, we have differentiation of all these governors that they are not governors of the states, that they bring about all sort of their paraphernalia, both legal and illegal, into the state. This has created a lot of security problem, and I think these are issues that the
That's a good question.
Do you have any other questions?
No, he said exactly. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's the last one. Okay. Thank you very much. I think that what you've said is very, very correct, especially in off-cycle elections and the challenges that it has actually raised for the election administration itself. In all circle elections, everybody bands together and they start trying to outbeat the other. But beyond that, I think one thing that these two last elections have shown us is the abuse of power of incumbency itself. The power of incumbency, either at the state level or the federal level, until those kind of issues are adequately addressed, the challenges will continue. So if you look at this election, it is he who is holding sway, either at one level, that will get the most media, have the most money to spend, outspend the other, and even create challenges for us, left, right, and center. Although for the governors coming in, the goal will again be that there is freedom of movement. And because there is freedom of movement that allows some of us to come as observers from Abuja, to come and observe this process, that allows the press to come in themselves to observe the process, it will be very difficult and counterproductive at times to even send them away. Then more fake news will come that will either invoke voter apathy and that will invoke voter apathy. But I think we really have to deal with the issue of power of incumbency and use the opportunity of the Electoral Reform Act such that anybody that is contesting or any government, any level, you withdraw the paraphernalia of office from them during that period and put it in INEC, like it's done in India, done in elsewhere. There are lots of best practices that we can actually adopt as a country. And I think on that note, I'll actually be concluding that electoral impunity is pervading because there is nobody that is actually implementing the law. So you will see that we make very good reference to it in our statement that it's not the police, the men of the security forces in these elections have deployed themselves very well, very courteous, not unduly intimidating people, even us as observers, as it used to be in yesteryears years. But the fact remains that when you turn your face, when there is rampant impunity on the ground, we are not helping to build a system. We are actually creating more and more problems. And once there is impunity, everybody will engage. So just be like, oh, what has happened to Mr. A, Mr. B tomorrow? Me too, I will. In fact, we saw a voter who told us that he's ready, they should carry him to headquarters. Because he was so sure that if he was arrested for vote buying, eventually he will be released and nothing is going to come out of it. So I think as a collective, we have to address that as a nation so that our vote can start counting and development will come to people the way it is. Thank you very much.